So, I've been doing sermons for a little bit now, but this is actually my first sermon in the New Testament letters. And can I say, these are actually really hard? Like, I'm used to English technical writing where it's like A, and then B, and then C, and then D, like carriages on a train. But like Greek technical thought is like, it starts with a statement, and then it like defines the terms of the statement, and then it like defines the terms that define the terms of the statement, and then you can like read the entire epistle, and you'd be like, okay, but what was the point though? So with that in mind, we're going to just kind of straight up try and brute force our way through the first half of this passage so we can see what we can understand about it, right? We're going to be meaning detectives, okay? Verse 1. Everyone who believes that Jesus is the Messiah has been born of God. Okay, straightforward, but deeply uncomfortable. You know what, let's come back to that one. Verse 2. This is how we know that we love the children of God, because we love God and do what God commands. That's a bit weird, actually. You would expect it to go the other way. Like, in the last chapter, we heard, those who love God must love their siblings. But this is how we know our siblings. We love God. Okay, so if this is how we love God, we love our siblings, and this is how we love siblings, we love God. Okay, well that bit's a bit circular. What's the second part? Love God and do what God commands. Okay, what are his commands then? Let's go find out. In 1 John 2:7, you don't have to flip to it, I'm going to tell you what it is. John says, "Dear friends, I'm not writing you a new command, but an old one, which you have had since the beginning. This old command is the message you have heard." Okay, so then what is the message we have heard? Okay, 1 John 3:11, "For this is the message we have heard from the beginning, we should love one another." Wait. So this is how we know we love God, we love our siblings. And this is how we know we love our siblings, we love God and do what God commands, which is to love our siblings. Okay, verse 3. And this is what loving God means. It means keeping his commandments. Okay, so to summarize, this is how we love God, we love our siblings. This is how we love our siblings, we love God, which means to do what God commands, which means to love our siblings, and do what God commands, which means to love our siblings. If that wasn't clear, I've made a diagram. Get it, man? It's like a cycle. So, I've explored every nook and cranny of this little section of argument, and I'll tell you why. I don't like it. I don't like loving other people, and I don't have the best relationship with loving God either. Why can't the core of my religion be something easier, like simple contemplation of the eternal, or regular exercise? I'm going to be having a lot of trouble with these commandments. Anyway, let's look at the second half of verse 3. His commandments, once more, are no trouble. Why are they no trouble? Because everything begotten by God conquers the world. Naturally, yes, that's why it's no trouble. Okay, so I did a lot of research on this verse as well, also because I don't like it. Despite my skin color, I'm not particularly invested in conquering the world, so, can we make this say something else? And some Bible translators do try and make it say something else. They often try and soften it or translate it like, overcomes the world, or has victory over the world. It doesn't really work, it still sounds pretty bad. But I actually did find something interesting about the word world here. We tend to think of world as the planet, nature, or humanity as a whole. But the Greek word here translated world is a bit different. The ancient Greek word here is cosmos, which is not the same as the English cosmos. Cosmos is normally a positively connotated word. Outside of Scripture, like in ancient Greek texts, we see it refer to beauty, ornament, arrangement, structure, system. And in Herodotus, he uses it to refer to people sitting around a table as they sat down in cosmos one after another. But John, in both his gospel and his letters, the vast majority of the time refers to cosmos as a negative concept. Why do you think a Palestinian Jew would have a negative perception of the Greek word for order? Like, I feel pretty neutral about the word government myself, but if you tell some First Nations community the government man is coming, that has a very different vibe. So, let's be amateur Bible translators for a minute here. With all of this context in mind, how can we translate cosmos into English for this Bible passage? Do we have a way of expressing beauty, ornament, arrangement, order, system that might be neutrally or positively connotated to those in power or maybe in technical writing, but starkly negatively coded to an oppressed group? How about system? Perhaps that's a good translation? Let's read what it makes, okay? This is how we know we love our siblings. We love God, which means to do what God commands, which is to love our siblings. And we do what God commands, which is to love our siblings. This is what loving God means. It means keeping God's commands, which is to love our siblings. God's commands, once more, are no trouble because everything that is born of God overcomes the system. How does that change it? John is a leader in a social movement fast becoming a subversive political community. And John said, the most important part of this community, the most important way this community needs to subvert the system is by practicing this radical, cyclical love. It's an interesting parameter to set up. First John creates this washing machine cycle of loving our siblings and loving God and loving our siblings and loving God. But then he grounds it in this idea that loving our siblings is not burdensome because loving our siblings overcomes the system. It's weird, but it also makes total sense to me. For me, within the church/religious context, the expected obligatory acts of love, both for God and for my siblings, are hella burdensome. Volunteering a reasonable amount to do the dinner dishes, the expectation that I support the church financially, remembering people's birthdays, reading the Bible, regular Bible study group. I am a terrible person, but all of these things make this pit of anxiety in my stomach that I have to overcome in order to do these things that I know that I'm meant to do. But loving people in radical ways, in ways that overcome systems. So I live next door at Epworth, which is a community living situation, which means that the kitchen is always dirty. That's the only thing you have to know. Sometimes I clean the kitchen because I'm on kitchen duty. Sucks. I hate it, but reasonable. I understand that this is a fair and just distribution of work. I get it. Sometimes I have to clean the kitchen even though I am not on kitchen duty because someone has made rice in the rice cooker and I need to make rice in the rice cooker and there's only one rice cooker, so I'm washing the rice cooker outrageous, obscene, I will kill you. But sometimes, twice, listen, when I'm in just the right mood, I'm standing in the kitchen and my pathological need to disrupt systems activates and I'm listen, this is it, this is gonna be the day of Jubilee. And then I clean the whole kitchen, even when people write their little name because they're going to come back to it later. I'm cleaning that too. It's all going in the dishwasher. And it's I want to emphasize, I'm not doing this out of the kindness of my heart. I'm doing this because it's just something about being unfairly loving that's just fun. People come and they're oh, I was going to do my dishes. I say, too late. I already loved you. Sometimes we love one another because it is fair and kind of compulsory. And sometimes we love one another because I was doing this anyway for selfish reasons, but I guess you benefit from it, you're welcome. But sometimes we love one another as a disruption to the status quo because the system says that we have to earn safety and housing and food and love and clean kitchens, and that's dumb. Instead, John wants us to build his community around a love that is unfair, uncompulsory, and subversive of dominant powers. And there's a second dimension to it too. I want us to have a clean kitchen. Not because we deserve to have a clean kitchen. I don't. I always let my pasta overboil on the stovetop and then I don't clean it up. But because having a clean kitchen is just good. I think John's saying a similar thing when he's giving instructions to his community. Let's have a good community. Not because we deserve it or earn it or because it's fair, but because having a good community is just good. Okay, how was that? We're going to expand this idea, okay? We're going to push a bit on the walls. Are you ready? There's an interesting part of John's system that we haven't explored explicitly yet. Do you remember how we started with verse 1 and then I said we were coming back to it? Coming back to it. Verse 1, everyone who believes that Jesus is the Messiah is born of God. Normally, in Christianity, we expect to be asked to love the other, the outsider, the neighbor. But this passage explicitly discusses loving our siblings. That is, everyone who believes Jesus is the Messiah. The worst people. The ones I have actual personal beef with. It can be easy to love the other when I get to pick which other I am deciding to love. But when it comes to the people in our lives that have already been picked out for us, the ones that have already hurt me, the ones who have power over me, or the worse, the ones giving people like us a bad name, well, it's hard. But maybe I've given up too soon. Maybe one day, when I feel safe enough and strong enough, there's a radical love for them too. One that overcomes the system. Let's look at the second half of the passage. And this is the victory that overcomes the system, our faith. Who is the one who overcomes the system? Surely the one who believes Jesus is God's child. It was Jesus who came by means of water and blood, Jesus the Messiah, not by water only, but by the water and the blood. What is John on about with the water and the blood thing? Okay, well, I've read a bunch of commentaries and I can tell you the debate rages. But I want to draw attention not so much to what John is trying to say, as to why he is saying it. Right? John is clearly taking the time to emphasize something. He's not by the water only, but by the water and the blood, right? He's taking the time to correct someone. Some people out there, they think Jesus only came by the water, but I need to emphasize, says John, water and blood. Not by water only, water and blood, right? John is given a glorious speech about how our whole religion is about loving our sibling, and our sibling means all our siblings, and then in the next breath, he's like, by the way, you guys are wrong there. Last Friday, I was at a wedding, and someone at my table asked what I did. And I was like, I go to Bible college, which is really embarrassing. Every time someone asks me, I feel like I go to Bible college. And then they were like, so-and-so college? Naming one of the most conservative Bible colleges in Sydney. And I was like, no, I just go to a different one, lol. But I actually regret responding that way. I wish I'd said something like, hey, I'm trans, they wouldn't let me in that Bible college, right? That's a thing that they do. Because I think me not bothering to engage with that person at the dinner table about that topic was actually a symptom of the fact that I, knowing next to nothing about them, had already decided that they weren't going to listen. Truth-telling is another form of radical love, a love that overcomes the system. Truth-telling is radical love, not just because it demands that justice be corrected, but also because the act of bothering to tell someone the truth is a symbol that you actually maybe have some hope that they might listen. I haven't written you off yet. We could be part of building a better community together. You're wrong, but I want to tell you that you're wrong. Because dinner's ready, and it would be cool if we could eat together. So, we've looked at two different kinds of radical love, right? We've looked at the jubilees, at the it's too late, I already loved yous, and we've looked at the truth-telling loves, the you're wrong, but also dinner's ready. But Eidan, yes, Eidan. All these things are too big for me. Yes. listening to John, it's kind of like listening to your like really extroverted community organizing friend. The vision is like really cool, but please don't ask me to do anything, I will cry. I'm scared of the washing machine that is like the loving God, loving others, loving God, loving others cycle. It's like, and so I'm scared because I'm tired, and I just want to be safe. I want to be loved. I'm afraid to fail. So I said to God, don't worry, I'll do my fair share later. I just have to have a break first. And God said, it's too late. Your fair share is already done. I did it for you. You don't owe me anything. Don't make any promises. I loved you already. And then I said to God, I cannot help build this community. Actually, I will fail. I will make it worse just by being here. And God said, you're wrong. And also, dinner's ready.